started cannabis when he was in preschool. I kind of kept it a secret for a while, mainly because I didn't know if it was going to work for his seizures. They knew we were taking him off of Keppra, so at some point I had to tell them, hey, like, we are treating his seizures. So I had an IEP and I met with the district nurse, and she was actually already familiar with cannabis and how it works. So that was such a relief that I didn't have to try to defend myself. So they were all supportive about it. And then they all kind of said, was that when he started talking? And I was like, yeah, he started talking like immediately after that. So that kind of made all of them a believer at that point. One of the hardest things I had to do with Gavin was to decide. I was really about CBD only. That was because I didn't want to get my kid high. I didn't, but when we started taking him off of Keppra, we had huge problems, like behaviors, withdrawal seizures, the whole thing. It was pretty terrible. So I remember calling Dr. Goldstein and just in tears and saying, should we try THC? I don't want to, and she said, try it. Just try a small dosage, a 0.5 milligram. And so that was how we started our journey and that was a hard one for me because I was so telling everybody CBD only, like we're not giving them anything that's psychoactive. But come to find out, kids like with autism, they really need that. Like the CBD only sometimes makes things so ramped up that they can't balance themselves out. So Gavin takes CBD and THC. He takes a lower dosage in the morning and then a little bit higher in the afternoon to control behaviors at home. We also have found out that the THC is very beneficial for him when he has a vomiting attack due to cyclic vomiting. THC is helpful for cancer patients. So sometimes when he has an attack of vomiting, we'll try a Zofran, which is an anti-vomiting drug, and he won't keep it down, it won't work. And then we'll give him a relatively high dose of THC oil, and I'll rub it in his gums, and I would say 9 times out of 10, the vomiting stops. So now giving it to him daily in little doses has been very beneficial because he doesn't vomit all day long either. So he's been amazing, his success. I just had an IEP yesterday with the school district for his triennial, and they said that they don't find him autistic anymore, that autism is no longer a qualifying placement within the school district. And I tell them, if you had seen him when he was 3, like you guys, he was severely autistic, and now you guys are saying that he doesn't show any autistic-like behaviors, so that's just pretty much a miracle.
So a lot of the most powerful patient stories and experiences I have are related to children. I'm a parent. Thank God I have healthy children for the most part, and I see these other parents that are struggling with these really severe conditions that are, it's just incredibly challenging, and when I get success there, I feel incredible. And so one is a patient that I believe you're going to be interviewing. When I met him, he was a young boy, 11 or so, with autism. Very severe self-injurious behavior. I mean, he was always putting his head through walls, literally beating himself up, bruising, concussions, serious injuries. And I was able to connect with him. I could tell when I looked in his eyes that he's there and that he doesn't want to be doing this, but he doesn't really have a choice, and because he's compelled to.
Everything was normal until he was about 2.5 years old. And then everything just kind of went from happy, engaging in the camera to dead face. He became the youngest. He became the youngest adolescent at the age of 12 to be put on medicinal marijuana for his self-injurious behaviors. He would literally put his head through the wall, bang his head 25 to 30 times a day. I've repaired 36 headbutt holes in our wall. I did get really good at sheetrock repair, which is not something that I wanted to put on my resume, but I am good at it. It was excessive. He would have double black eyes, baseball-sized lump on his head. He would sometimes look like a Klingon. It was once recorded at a hospital that he banged his head 171 times. And
his mom had, before she saw me, been through basically every treatment option and all of these different inpatient facilities. Nothing really worked. And I started using cannabis with him. He was eating small cannabis brownies. This was before the testing lab. We were guessing on his dosage. We started to see some improvements, actually. And then something happened with a batch of brownies. I think that he just wasn't getting the medicine that he needed, and he relapsed really strongly, and it was severe. He was going to hurt himself badly. So he went to the emergency department. He had to be restrained there. He was actually in the emergency department for about a week without going anywhere else. They couldn't admit him to the hospital. There were no facilities in New England that had the services he needed. None of the drugs they used were working, nothing. So I got on a phone call with the head of the hospital, the head of the emergency department, the doctor that was taking care of him in the emergency department, and the head of the state Child Protective Services, and talked about what some of the options are. And I said, well, you know, this guy actually was responding to cannabis. You've pretty much tried everything else. You know, I suggest that we try this again. No, we can't do it in the hospital. You know, it's federally illegal, and so forth. I said, well, there's this drug called dronabinol or Marinol, which is a synthetic THC in a pill. You guys have that in your hospital formulary. You know, that would be something worth trying since you've tried everything else. No, you know, we just can't do it. And the call ended, and it was, you know, like, what's this kid gonna do? Stay in the emergency room for another week or another month? Or there was just no option. It was a dead end. 2 minutes later, the phone rang. It was his doctor from the emergency room saying, how do I dose dronabinol? You know, I said, give the kid 5 milligrams. Because that's what I was guessing he was getting in his brownies when they were working. 3 hours later, he's giggling, he walks out of the emergency room. He's discharged. When nothing else was working. He hasn't been back since, and that was probably 5 years ago. So, you know, that was so powerful. He was able to stay on either cannabis or dronabinol, depending on where he is, at home or in a group living facility, and maintain these great effects. He does not beat himself up at all. He's got really improved function. As you'll hear about from the interview, he's very successful. He's a partial business owner now, and he's working. He's doing all this great stuff with you know, this history of, you know, being at a dead end. And so that was incredible. I love that guy. He's beautiful.